Hello, I'm Joseph Haldane, President of the International Academic Forum, and I'm here at ACA 2015 with Mr. Jared Baxter, an independent researcher and specialist on Vincent van Gogh. Mr. Baxter, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Joe.
Now, Vincent van Gogh, how did you come to specialise in Vincent van Gogh, one of the world's most loved artists?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you for asking it. It's a kind of a funny story. We had a poster of his in our kitchen. We were newlyweds and we didn't have much money to decorate the home, and my wife had purchased a number of his prints. And in the kitchen, she placed a cafe terrace at night. And one day I was sort of looking at the painting, wondering, what is that man in the middle of this painting doing? I got up for a closer look, and it appeared he was a server. And I don't know, something clicked. He was a servant. And I counted the diners around him. There were 12. Then I looked directly behind him. There were window mullions that formed a crucifix, and I was convinced I was looking at his Last Supper. I promptly did nothing about it for about 12, 13 years.
So when you saw this Last Supper as you came to see it in this Vincent van Gogh picture, you were struck and you thought, well, this is a clear depiction of the Last Supper. For you, it was an epiphany, and indeed epiphany is the right word in the context of your wider work, which involves Christianity. But at that time, you looked at it and you thought, this is the Last Supper, but then you also thought, well, Van Gogh, this is a huge figure, surely someone's written about this, surely someone's noticed it.
Exactly, I did. And you know, it happened so long ago, 15 years ago, the internet wasn't quite where it is today. I sent out a couple of emails, I didn't get any replies, and I just didn't even think about it or worry about it anymore. And then it was in 2011 that the Van Gogh Museum, they announced that a portrait, long thought to be a self-portrait, was actually of his younger brother Theo. On the tails of that, a new book comes out, the autobiography, the biography, claiming that he did not commit suicide, but was more likely shot and covered up his own murder. So it was then I realized there are still discoveries being made about this artist, and perhaps I should dig into this Last Supper theory a little bit further. And upon doing so, I could find no evidence of anybody having this theory ever before, so I thought I'd dig in deeper, which I did. To me, the elements of a Last Supper are pretty basic. You need to have a Christ, a serving figure, or perhaps even just a servant. You need to have 12 diners, one of whom is a Judas. A halo is not necessary, but it's quite often in there. And that's about it. Those are really the only elements that one, I think, necessarily has to have to create a Last Supper.
So this is something of a coup in the academic establishment. I mean, finding out something that A, people are interested in, but also B, that has some validity and has some traction among the establishment, as it were. Now, how have you found the Van Gogh, the art critical sort of establishment react to your interpretation here?
Yeah, not very well. Luckily, there is about 40 years of scholarship, the last 40 years, that has shifted, and they have discovered that Van Gogh was painting in this symbolist form, in particular a Madonna and Child that he did. This is pretty well accepted, even by Dutchmen themselves. So it was during the same period in Arles when he painted a Madonna and Child, which he liked framed by 2 of his sunflowers, that he wrote in a letter that would be like torches or candelabra in this triptych. So he was doing the same type of art at the same time in Arles when he painted Cafe Terrace at Night.
So in other words, you're arguing that this fits perfectly well in with his whole oeuvre.
Exactly. If he were to do a Last Supper, this is exactly what it would look like. Okay,
fascinating. So you've been presenting at IAFOR conferences. This is your 3rd IAFOR conference.
Yes, it is.
The first couple of times as regular presenters, but then this time we gave you a bigger platform to discuss some of your ideas. Perhaps you can tell us what your presentation was about this time.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. It was a great honor to have a platform this big. So digging into Van Gogh, I really feel like understanding Cafe Terrace gives you an aperture into his world that hasn't existed before. When you understand he was doing this type of religious or transfigured Christian work, a whole new vista opens up. And so I, at that point, began studying the other papers that had been written about him, in particular his Starry Nights, and the most famous Starry Night at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, with its gorgeous swirling skies and huge luminous moon and pulsating stars. there's a lot of theories written about this painting, unlike Cafe Terrace, where
Yes.
very little has been written. There are a number of theories that have been bandied about for 80-something years. And I thought that they were all lacking a little bit. So I reached out to a gentleman, he's retired now, Professor Emeritus at Carleton College in Minnesota, and he had written a paper that suggested it might be a sublimated Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane. And he goes into a lot of detail of why he believes this. And because I thought Cafe Terrace was the Last Supper, well, this would fit perfectly, because after the Last Supper came, you know, the Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane. And he asked me, well, there's a third painting, and it's Starry Night over the Rhone. And he asked, how does that fit into the overall scheme? Well, it was that point I didn't know, so I went back into my research, and I just became overwhelmed by one name that kept coming up again and again and again, and it was Dante Alighieri. There were so many references in so many different places that I finally read Dante, and I'll tell you, it was life-changing. The fact that Van Gogh has led me to Dante may be more important than anything else I've done. I think once you study Dante, anybody who studies him seriously, you have to come to terms with yourself, and there's some pretty amazing things in his poetry.
So Van Gogh led you to Dante, and this study of Christianity has led you to a work which has been hugely studied. So you're going from a giant of the art world to a giant of the literary world. So where next for your research?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I would like to bring this to a broader audience, and that's really been my goal for the past 3 years that I've been researching this. And the great thing about IAFOR is it's given me a bigger platform. Having presented my paper in an academic conference, in an academic atmosphere, where there's peer reviews going on and there's publishing opportunities, it's been a great opportunity for me to grow as an academic. So now I'd like to bring it to a broader audience, and I have a book that I'm working on that aims to, you know, entreat people of maybe they've heard of Van Gogh, maybe they know a little bit about him, he cut off his ear or shot himself. And I think when people go to the museums, they're certainly dazzled by his colors and they're amazed by the textures, and I think they feel something else. I think they feel maybe something a little bit spiritual, but they can't put it into words, and I'm hoping I can maybe help them do that.
Okay, well, it's been great to have you here, and it's been great to see you develop your scholarship, and it will also be great to see you develop it further and go on to all sorts of great things. And we do hope that you'll not forget us as you become a bigger name in the art world, and that you'll come back and continue to present at IAFOR conferences.
It would be my great pleasure to come back, Joe.
Jared, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And thank you very much. To keep up to date with all our latest research, publications, and online platforms, please go to www.iafor.org.